Good morning and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Comfort Keepers In-Home Care and Advanced Audiology. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Gene Dorio, who is on his way, and I'm assuming that's why he is late, because he's seeing patients, right? On your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our guest this morning is Rick Ferrante of Home Care Services, Santa Clarita. And later in the hour, we will be speaking with Randall Kaden, who is an elder law attorney. Well, good morning, Rick, and welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. We're having a good time catching up here. I haven't been here in a while, so I appreciate you having me.
You had a stand-in before.
I had a stand-in, yeah.
One of the women who work for you.
Much prettier stand-in. Right.
Well, she enjoyed herself.
That's great stuff. Good stuff.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, as you know, and we've talked about this for a year, right, Barbara?
Yes.
was our walk to end Alzheimer's. And what's interesting is here we've gone, we spent a lot of time talking about the walk, getting volunteers and sponsors and all that kind of thing. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. But basically, what is that? It's a fundraiser, right?
Yes,
plain and simple.
Money.
It's raise money. But what's that for? And there's two things. One is to fund research to find a cure. Pretty obvious. And they do a great job of that. They vet different institutions, organizations, and so on to determine which would be the most advantageous to fund, grant monies to do medical research, to do clinical trials, things like that. Makes a lot of sense. There's not a whole lot of them, and in fact, there really aren't any in Santa Clarita that would be doing that kind of thing. It would be like a USC, UCLA, those and other institutes that would do that.
Well, let me ask you something.
Yes.
Are they really working on it?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I
can't tell you, Barbara.
Okay.
Okay. I get these newsletters and like email, a blast on all the different things that are going on, and probably about 2/3 of them are about the various different research, and I'm not going to call them breakthroughs, because it's kind of a misnomer. It's more of just tantalizing clues and little tidbits that you keep grinding and grinding in there, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's just a long process. And there's no home runs here. It's a lot of little singles. It's a lot of little, that you're going and going. And that's why it takes a lot of money, a lot of time. But there is hope. There is a lot going on. And I see on those emails, those blogs and newsletters that, some connection here and some tantalizing clue there and all these things. And when you start adding those together, it's going to get there. Can I say it'll be next week? I don't know. Can I say it'll be in years and years? I don't know. But without doing that, it's never going to get there. So that's why that's one of the things that we have to have. But it's frustrating because it's not here. But what do we do in the meantime? And that's the second thing that the Walk to End Alzheimer's was about, is funding programs and services to support the people that are dealing with the disease today. Okay, before we have this cure and don't need all this stuff, right?
Right.
So what is that about? I mean, look around and what's going on. And that was one of the things that was really important to myself and to the committee, that, look, when the community of Santa Clarita came out and we were 700 people out there at Bridgeport Park. It was 40% greater than we did the year before.
Wow.
We raised over $95,000.
Really?
Okay, we were 40% greater than the year before. It was fantastic. And it was a great time. Everybody had a great time. Wow. The community came out. We had hundreds of volunteers. We had so many people. It was a wonderful day. But here's the point. Real important.
Okay.
While we're thanking everybody to doing that, it's great that we raise that money. And like I said, one of the things that we're doing is funding that research, and they do. But the other was, and I had long conversations directly with the Alzheimer's Association, myself, my committee, said, look, we need services here in Santa Clarita. Okay, we're writing checks, we're volunteering, we're sponsoring, we're coming out there, we're walking. We want to have services, programs and services, and we want them here. Okay. And, we're not trying to be selfish here as much as we're trying to say, look, this community needs it just as any other community needs it. And this community is supporting it. There are 600 walks throughout the country for the Alzheimer's Association. Ours is one. And if we're going to be part of that, we want to be part of that in the sense that we're also getting those services. You look around, it is very difficult. And we've talked about this before. It's hard to find somebody who isn't touched by Alzheimer's, some way or form, their family, their loved ones, whoever, somebody that isn't, here and there touched by Alzheimer's. And so we want those services here. So that's one of the things I wanted to let people know today, that they are stepping up and doing exactly that.
They are?
Absolutely. And as a direct result of the committee and all the people and our talking all year, right? We keep coming in here. I kept pounding it.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Dorio, who is here, has joined us. And Barbara, you guys have been really instrumental, and KHTS instrumental in kind of pushing the awareness. Mm-hmm. Well, what has that resulted? Last year at this time, right now, this time of year, last year, there was one support group for Alzheimer's, caregivers of Alzheimer's in Santa Clarita. And there was only one, there's only been one for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. There's now 5. Okay. So we've developed and created new support groups. And I'll just quickly read them off, but so that people know. There's one at Oakmont Assisted Living. Right. That's on the third Tuesday of each month, third Thursday of each month. I got to get these right. There's one at Real Life Church. That's on the first and third Tuesday of each month. There is one at the Santa Clarita Alzheimer's Greater Los Angeles office on the first and third Wednesday of each month. There's one at our office at Home Care Services on the third Thursday of each month. And then one at Friendly Valley on the third Monday of each month. The only one that was here before was that one at Oakmont. The other ones are new since last year. And that's part of what we're doing, guys.
Oh, that's
we're bringing
wonderful.
Services to this valley, and that's one of them. The other one is we have educational and speaker series. There was nothing like that out here. I don't know of any of them that were out here. There's occasional things that people had done. Now we have one once a month at Home Care Services. We have those on Tuesday, actually twice a month, every second and fourth Tuesday. Talking about the basics of Alzheimer's, the 10 signs, communication, dealing with, different strategies, things like that. And we're putting together 2 more in a couple of different locations, educational series. There's tons of materials now, resource materials, brochures, pamphlets, printed material that we've created at our office that is just Alzheimer's Association developed and produced, all free. We can also now schedule free consultation for anyone with a social worker from the Alzheimer's Association that will meet them here and schedule an appointment to help people that are dealing with the disease. You guys, none of this stuff was here last year at this time. So part of what we're doing isn't just to raise money and write checks. Part of what we're doing is to develop this stuff. And there's a bunch of things that are on the table that are coming. And I'll come back and tell you more and more, because this year, my goal isn't just to go and get money for the next walk, which, by the way, is next year, October 7th at Bridgeport Park.
I'll put it on my calendar.
We've already got a date, October 7th, Saturday, October 7th at Bridgeport Park. Okay. But here's the point. This is not about just fundraising, right? It's about these kinds of things, these services, and it's really, really important.
How do you, though, Rick, assure that there's no conflict or duplication of work? Do all 5 groups kind of talk to each other and make sure they're not one night doing one thing in one place and the next night they're doing the same thing in another place? I mean, how do we assure that the word gets out there, but we're not overdoing it and saturating the community too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we did is we recognized that if we're going to bring things to this valley, all these resources, that we had to have a format, an organization, a structure, so that it's not just haphazardly doing things. Sure, stuff gets, kind of squirrely at times, but if you have a structure and you have organization, then you avoid those kinds of problems that you just mentioned, Dr. Dorio. So what we did is we created the SCV Alzheimer's Awareness Project. It's a different committee. There's the walk committee that does just the walk, but the SCV Alzheimer's Awareness Project has a whole subcommittee that is about support groups. Debbie DiCorrado is the person who chairs that subcommittee, and she does exactly that. Dr. Dorio is organizes, and each one of these, as these support groups have come on, that's exactly the kind of thing that she did. Mm-hmm. Okay, which days, which times, what are we doing? Where do we need others, and where do we already have enough, like kind of location wise? And we were talking about getting some over here in Canyon Country area, so that will be the next step. Kind of really have enough over here on the Valencia side, those kinds of things, days and weeks and times. And also the facilitators that do these support groups, they can then back each other up and help each other and cross educate, so that that's a tough thing, is to deal and try to work and facilitate these groups. Well, they can kind of get together, best practices, ideas, things like that. It really helps and cover each other and, back each other up, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you have support groups, but the support groups are mainly support groups for the caregivers, as opposed, because some people listening right now might think, well, I'm going to send my loved one to this group.
No, yeah, the support groups are for the family caregivers, or anybody that's a caregiver of someone with Alzheimer's dementia. It's an interesting thing that we're doing at the one at Home Care Services is we have, and we'll be looking at this at others as well, is we're bringing in what they call memories in the making. And that is actually targeted towards the person that has afflicted with the disease. So what someone can do is actually bring, both of them can come. And then the person that has the disease is working with one person in memories in the making, and the other one is with the support group, the caregiver. Memories in the making, it's a really interesting one. And these are the kinds of programs we're talking about, is basically therapy, art therapy. Okay, for Alzheimer's and dementia patients. And what you really find, and we've seen so many things like this, where a lot of the activities of daily living, really suffer. And you've seen it, Dr. Dory, you've both seen it, the issues with dementia and Alzheimer's. But in a lot of cases, and so that quality of life, you look at it, and yeah, compared to somebody who's 100% functioning, it's challenging. So it's difficult to find those things that enhance that quality of life when there have all these limitations. And a lot of times, not everybody, but for a lot of people, art is a great way to bring that out, and to bring out the positive emotions and positive feelings, and allow kind of a calm and a sense of peace, especially someone who maybe during their lifetime was very creative and artistic. By the way, that would not include me. I'm not sure this would be very good for me, Mr. Stick Figure guy. But it is staggering how that has helped kind of bring people out that are suffering the disease, especially in the middle and late stages. It's extraordinary.
Let me ask you something, Rick. When you talk about these people going through these projects, do you find that someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, many cases can think back to things that happened to them a long, long time ago?
Yes.
Maybe not necessarily in the here and now. And connected to your art classes, do you have them paint or draw or something related to that memory they think of a long time ago?
The idea is they kind of paint whatever and draw, and we try to encourage whatever that comes to them. And you're right, what ends up happening a lot, because and this isn't every single time, but the general progression of the disease starts in more of a short-term memory issue and then progresses to more long-term memory later. So you do get that situation where can't remember what I just talked about, but I remember my best friend in third grade.
Right.
And so yes, if somebody is, especially in those middle and late stages, looking to say, okay, what are they going to be drawing? And some of them literally can just, really can't draw anything, but in their minds, this is what they're portraying. And so, yes, you're right. That's kind of, but it's more up to them of what they're doing and where they are in the stage of the disease, and what kind of brings peace and kind of help them and kind of let them express themselves. And some really cool artwork has come out of it. I mean, it is really neat. And so we're working on developing that program in various areas. And these are things that are coming through. Go ahead.
It's not for caregivers, though. That's for the actual patient suffering with Alzheimer's.
Yes.
And the other side of that is what's been out in the news a lot are patients who have memory problems who then hear music. I had a patient who I think was about 98 years old, and she had no short-term memory, and pretty much her long-term memory was gone. But if you put her in front of a piano, she could play Chopin.
It's just wonderful, huh?
It was great.
Neat.
And I once asked her to play, it was her birthday, so I said, can you play Happy Birthday? And like Liberace, she just knocked it out. But you have seen people who are in wheelchairs, slumped over, maybe drooling and kind of out of it. And then all of a sudden they start playing music and you see their foot start to tap, their fingers start to tap, their head start to nod. And you go, gee, they're hearing that. And it's bringing back those intrinsic memories of the past. And that makes a difference too. So art and music and probably a few other things can
kind of circle around the same kind of thing,
Certainly.
Right? And Alzheimer's Association is beta testing, and we're going to be one of the first adopters of this as a general. And when I say art, it can be any of those things because they kind of, the full spectrum of art, including music and, all the elements of it, that using that as therapy. So we will definitely be coming on and letting you know of the various things that are coming.
Right.
And again, just bringing it back, you guys, that's the result of this community coming together and bringing this to Santa Clarita. And these are the things that we're going to be continuing to push and say, and then, we're all together. Look, we're going to go out there and fundraise again next October, but this is what we have as a result.
Now, another question. You have home care services, and are your employees trained in handling and working with people with Alzheimer's and dementia?
Yes, obviously we're immersed in it. This is 70% of what we have in terms of people that we're helping is in Alzheimer's and dementia and related other dementias. This is a tough thing, and so we have. This is why this is part and parcel. Why kind of circling around this is just immersed in it day to day, both training, education, and some of these newer and kind of creative things as well. And a lot of it's kind of driven by what that client is dealing with, as opposed to just kind of forcing things on. You have to really kind of learn, and you learn about background, you learn about family traits, things like that, and then you start to develop an individual plan. So that's in those cases, it's more kind of specific to the client, but absolutely.
Right. Now, how many employees do you have?
Right now, about 40, part and full-time employees, because what we do is we supply put caregivers in a home. So it's not a facility, so it's in the home. Mm-hmm. And then some of them, like I said, are full or part-time, depending, but about 40 is where average is about right now.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I know that the ones that you sent for me, for my situation, they were incredible. All of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're really proud of a lot. It's a people thing, right? I mean, these aren't machines. We help people with people, and you find good people, and that's what it's all about.
And that's what you're doing for our community, Rick. We appreciate that. If any of our listeners want to get a hold of you, what's your phone number?
It's 800-808-4777. So 800-808-4777.
That's easy to remember.
Yeah. And
even for me.
And if you want to get involved, like I said, this is not just getting involved and walk and fundraise and everything. This is now getting involved to help people. And we're going to use this to build more services for Santa Clarita, and then certainly come on out to the next walk. We'll talk about that more later.
Great.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful having you here, Rick.
Thanks for having me.
Look forward to the next time you're here.
Sounds good.
Terrific. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.